entertainmentbuddha.com.
Hello everyone, this is Jim Payne, aka 10 Bensons, and I'm here for entertainmentbuddha.com to do a video review of Combat Mission Red Thunder. Red Thunder is best described as a simulation strategy game. It's definitely a game for all you armchair generals out there, or anybody who has an interest in simulation games or strategy games, as this actually is a nice mix of both. Also, if you have an interest in World War II, this is definitely a game that I would recommend checking out, as Red Thunder actually takes place on the Eastern Front, and you will, in the campaign, be taking charge of the Russians in Operation Bagration, which takes place from June to September in 1944. Red Thunder is actually the third addition to the latest in the Combat Mission series, and it uses the latest game engine. I think it's version 3.0, and it has a couple of key new features that Battlefront are keen to show off and talk about. Namely, the most interesting from, I suppose, a gamer's point of view would be the addition of flamethrowers, both troops and vehicle flamethrowers, which really add a kind of an extra level of punishment into the series. Red Thunder is certainly one of the most unique strategy games available on the market to buy. Its core mechanics are unlike any other game, and there are many of them. There are lots of things all kind of interlocking and working together to make an incredibly deep and complex simulation game wrapped up in a strategy shell. Red Thunder is incredibly uncompromising. Its difficulty curve is almost a vertical line. And for the most part, you will spend a lot of time and effort trying to figure out all the various mechanics and how they work within the game. You can spend time, and it will be time well spent, reading the manual that comes with the game, as it will detail various aspects as you work through the initial training missions, which I highly recommend that if it's your first time out in the Combat Mission series, that you head there first to hone your skills and prepare yourself for the more difficult and longer campaign missions, which there are two of. Both of them are from a Russian standpoint. There's also 18 scenario missions, and there's a quick battle scenario maker, and there's also a scenario stroke map editor, which is not the easiest thing to use to begin with, but once you get your head around it, it's actually quite fun to just mess around and start adding units and make your own custom scenarios. The quick battle scenario maker, on the other hand, is a series of drop-down menus which will allow you to kind of fiddle with certain parameters and tailor a quick game or a long game, if you wish, to your own personal tastes. Also, the advantages of playing with the scenario missions and the scenario maker and editor is that you can play a mission or a series of missions from the point of view of the Germans, which is always good and obviously always handy to be able to access all that content that you don't get in the campaign. With that being said, though, not all scenario missions allow you to play as either the Germans or the Soviets, and this is down to obviously mission design. There's probably some triggers in there that can only be activated when you play as one of the other sides, but for the most part, a lot of the missions allow you to play as either Soviets or Germans, which is a nice touch and obviously adds that kind of longevity into the game and allows you to have some fun while you're at it. Okay, so let's talk about Red Thunder's weak points. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the graphics, which, although aren't exactly brilliant, they're not exactly terrible either. Some of the textures can seem pretty dull, very low res. If you was expecting a immensely beautiful game, then you're going to be pretty disappointed when you first get in and you first take a good look at the troops and all the units. Now, that's not to say they're not actually very detailed. When you get down into a high zoom level, you can see that the developers have spent a lot of time adding all the authentic kit. They've even modelled the inside of vehicles, albeit at a very low resolution. There are times when combat mission really shines in the visual department, especially when you're at ground level surveying your troops and you've got all the trees and foliage turned on, and you're just watching the sheer level of detail that's actually gone in to the graphics. You can see like I said, individual bits of kit on your troops. You can see all the elevation changes in the map. Any artillery barrages that have happened, you can see all the craters, and they're all different sizes. Larger caliber artillery will leave a larger crater on the map, and you can actually use that as cover as well, which is quite interesting. But we'll come to that later. So, although the visuals aren't exactly jaw-dropping, they do just fine for the type of game that Red Thunder is trying to be. In fact, I think it's fair to say that if the graphics were pushing your computer any more than the game engine currently is, you would probably find that your frames per second would grind to a halt. So that brings us on to the second weak point of Red Thunder, and it's the sound, which, like the visuals, is neither excellent or terrible. It kind of fills that middle ground. Weapon sounds are okay. They're distinctive enough so that you can tell the difference between each individual weapon. You can tell a rifle from a pistol, from an SMG, from a machine gun, or a fixed emplacement machine gun and a tank machine gun. You can tell the difference between them. Vehicle sounds are okay. Tanks ticking over and trucks ticking over are pretty standard sounds, and there's nothing really that special about them. And nor does there really need to be that, and that's the point that I really want to make here, is that you'll find that Combat Mission does just fine as it is within the sound department. Artillery, however, is particularly terrifying, and I think that's because it's much louder than other sounds, and I suppose that's realistic. You wouldn't want an artillery shell to land next to you in real life, so having multiple artillery shells land in game is deafening, not just for you but also for your troops. You'll find that it has a massive impact on how the battle will go. Also, voices are they're okay. I wouldn't say that you'll find that they're excellent in regards to their quality, which is okay. You'll find that it's much better to have a few sounds that play less often than a lot of sounds that play very often, as it gets quite fatiguing hearing the same thing over and over again. Also, it's worth mentioning that the Russians speak Russian and the Germans speak German. So if you don't understand Russian or German, you're probably going to have a hard time understanding what exactly your troops are saying. That shouldn't matter though, because you're the one that will be in control of them, so you'll understand what situation they're in at any given time, and therefore will probably be able to get a rough idea of the condition that they're in. As far as the story goes, Red Thunder doesn't really seem to have one, nor does it really need one. In fact, it would seem really alien and strange to have a traditional style narrative bolted on top of what is essentially a simulation strategy game. What it does have is a campaign that is essentially a series of missions taken from the Soviet offensive, and they happen sequentially. And you'll find that for the most part, you will scout out a position before assaulting the position, or it could be a village or a certain objective, and then you'll find that you'll end up defending that objective or moving on to another one as the offensive pushes forward. Now, it would be unfair to say that Red Thunder doesn't have any scope for creating a story. In fact, for the most part, you'll find that you will spend a lot of time creating your own adventure and story within the missions, and it's a simple case of either being punished or being successful finding new ways and new tactics to learn things. I mean, you could even go the whole route and keep a close eye on your soldiers, who are all named. And it kind of reminded me of cannon fodder and trying to keep Jules and Jops alive. But it's very, very hard to keep Jules and Jops alive this time round. Also, by dabbling with the scenario editor, it is perfectly reasonable to create your own scenarios and, in fact, create your own story. It fully supports being able to create your own scenarios from start to scratch, including briefings and notes, etc., etc., etc. So if you really wanted to, you could create your own historical battle based on your favourite one from the Eastern Front, or create an entirely fictional one, complete with a fictional map. There are simply hundreds of possibilities for you to create your own story within Red Thunder. And this brings us on to the fact that Red Thunder is possibly the most replayable game that you will ever play. The sheer amount of content is absolutely staggering, and the fact that it has all these different tactical options, it has the scenario editor that I've mentioned, and the quick battle or the quick scenarios, and you can replay these scenarios to your heart's content, trying new tactics, new ways, new avenues of approaches to your objectives. The AI will respond dynamically to you and is absolutely brutal and ruthless to go with it. In fact, in one particular quick battle that I played, I set up my troops. I spent a good, I think it was about half an hour setting all my troops up in the various zones, only to have the AI absolutely destroy them within the first minute of gameplay with an impressive and awesome artillery barrage, which broke the morale of my troops and therefore left them unwilling and incapable of fighting. Obviously, if I was to replay that scenario again, I would try a different approach. I would reposition my troops and spread them out a little bit more. So you can really see that Red Thunder has that ability to let you really stretch and flex your tactical muscle. And there's not many other games out there that really give you that opportunity. So let's take a deep look at all the various systems that Combat Mission will throw at you from the very beginning, including when you first start the training missions. In fact, that's possibly the first place that you will go to if you are a newcomer, and it's fair to say that you will want to read the manual. In fact, the game, I think it's 120 pages, the manual, and there's a section in there that guides you through the tutorial campaign, although it doesn't specifically tell you what you should be doing at all times. It's nice to have that kind of general guideline and introduce you to a few of the game's core elements, of which there are many. One of the key elements is the command and communication, and which is affected by three different parameters: line of sight, voice, and atmospheric conditions such as radios can be affected by trees and woods. And this has the effect of essentially breaking the chain of command with your troops. Obviously, if you have a commander and a squad leader or platoon leader, they need to remain in constant contact with each other to be able to talk amongst themselves. And this affects the troops' ability to react to situations, to call out enemies and let their fellow troops know. And it has a massive, massive impact on how you will approach each mission. Now, there are plenty of times where you are unable to maintain the links of command and communication, and therefore you have to really, really carefully think about how you're going to use your troops. For example, I mean, you might have an infantry squad that can spot a tank. They can see the tank in a tree line, and you have some armor moving up the road, and you might think that it's okay for you to send your armor up that road to knock out the tank. However, if your armor hasn't individually seen that tank, he's going to have a nasty surprise. Now, your infantry can they can see this tank and they can shout and they can yell, but if your tank is not within the correct range, it won't know about it and is very likely to get knocked out or at least damaged or panicked. There's a whole morale system in there. Your troops can be panicked by a vast array of different things. But for just sticking with the command and communication, it's very important that you pay close attention to who can communicate with who. This can even affect things such as mortars. Your mortars must be able to be directed, so being able to see where their mortar rounds will land. Generally, I found that the mortar platoon is their squad leader will have a radio, so any other platoon leader or squad leader with a radio that has the ability to call in artillery will be able to direct your mortars. However, they must be able to see the target. They must be able to see it with a clear line of sight for them to be effective. There's also the morale system, which plays an absolutely a crucial part in how your battle will go. Your troops are affected by obviously deaths of their comrades. This can greatly affect your troops. Artillery is absolutely devastating to your troops if they're caught in it and they start to sustain heavy casualties. And anything of a large caliber. Machine guns are particularly vicious. More often than not, you will find that you'll send troops from one location to another to be cut down midway by a craftily placed machine gun on the flank. And this will greatly affect your troops to the point where they end up actually being broken and unwilling to fight. You can move them out of a combat zone or out of direct combat, and they will recover over time. But it's fair to say that for the most part, if your troops end up broken, they will stay broken. They don't want to go back in there. They don't want to fight. They don't want to die. They have self-preservation, which is outstanding to see in a strategy game. I can't think of any other game that has a morale system that is this deep. And it's also worth bearing in mind that certain units are designated as core units, and these core units will carry over to the next mission. So any casualties that you've sustained, their morale, their leadership bonuses, or ammunition will carry over to the following mission or following missions. As you can see, the combat mission Red Thunder is a game that you have to spend a lot of time really, really carefully planning your move and keeping an eye on your troops' ammunition and health and well-being, making sure that you don't do the traditional strategy thing of getting loads of people together and overwhelming the enemy by sheer numbers. Now, this will not happen in Red Thunder. You could get 1,000 men together and charge a machine gun and it will kill them all. Or it will kill most of them and the rest will flee. So you have to really think carefully about all your tactical options. And you are given so many different tactical options to explore, which makes the whole game incredibly fun, trying out different ways, sending out a couple of scouts to probe enemy positions, or laying down a smoke screen, or trying different combinations of moving armor and troops, or trying a wild flanking maneuver that hopefully will get around behind the enemy and allow you to gain the upper hand. Even on its most basic setting, Combat Mission provides an incredible challenge for any strategy gamer. Its different difficulty levels don't make the AI any smarter or any more cunning. What it actually does is affect your ability to be able to spot troops and what equipment they carry, whether or not you can tell if a vehicle's been knocked out or is still active, because vehicles actually have various different components. I think there's probably about 7 or 8 different components that can be damaged or broken on a vehicle, but it can still be active. For example, the tracks can be disabled, but the turret can still move, it can still fire. Individual crew members can also be killed, which reduces the effectiveness of the tank or vehicle in question. So increasing the difficulty effectively increases the fog of war that you will encounter whilst playing a mission. With so much to concentrate on and so much to keep an eye on, coupled with all your tactical options, it can be overwhelmingly hard playing the game in real time, which Red Thunder allows you to do. However, it really comes alive when you play it turn-based, because when you play it turn-based, you have an unlimited amount of time to survey the battlefield, to get an idea of the different elevation changes that is going to affect line of sight, that's going to affect your command and communication. Surveying the land is almost as important as moving your troops and ordering your troops to fire. Also, when you play turn-based and you've finished issuing your orders, you have to wait for an agonizing 60 seconds to find out whether your tactics that you've carefully and meticulously planned for anywhere up to 5 or 10 minutes in the orders phase actually come to any kind of fruition. And more often than not, you'll find that even the best laid plans, no matter how long you spend on them, will end up inevitably having some kind of problem. And this is one of the finest things about Combat Mission Red Thunder, is the fact that playing it turn-based adds that element of suspense, of wondering whether the tactic that you are going for will work, will pay off, whether or not the artillery that you have just sent raining down on a suspected enemy position has actually done anything at all. And of course, you're not going to find out if it's done anything until you can see that from one of your troops on the ground. Every unit, and even friendly units on the higher difficulty levels, you can't see them unless you have your troops on the ground have line of sight. Red Thunder is not a game that you should embark upon if you don't have a lot of time to really understand all of its core mechanics and really get to grips with all the tactical options available to you. Thankfully, when you play turn-based, you are given the option to be able to save at any point in the orders phase, which is a great help, as some of the missions, particularly the larger and longer missions, will take you anywhere up to around about 4 hours to complete, depending on the tactics that you use. And also remember that after every orders phase, you have the replay phase, and you are able to replay that from any position, any angle, as many times as you like before you continue on to the next orders phase. In fact, it's a incredibly useful tool to determine what exactly has happened to your troops, trying to find where incoming fire has come from. So really, if you don't have the time to learn all of the systems in Red Thunder, you're going to be at a disadvantage from the get-go. Combat Mission Red Thunder is a game that knows exactly what it wants to be. The developers' passion and love of history and authenticity oozes through every pore. It may not have the most amazing visuals or amazing audio, but its gameplay far outweighs any of its shortcomings, and it's an absolute treat for anybody who is into strategy or World War II or even simulation. It's also truly unique. You'd be hard-pressed to find a game that incorporates as many varied systems under its hood as Red Thunder does. In fact, it's kind of like the Dark Souls of the strategy world. It takes time to really fully understand its core mechanics and underlying systems, and it punishes you over and over again, but never really feels unfair. It's always something that you have done, a mistake that you have made, a decision that you did not consider carefully enough before sending off your troops. There's also plenty for you to get your teeth into, with a plethora of missions and scenarios and the editor, plus the ability to play multiplayer online and an interesting ability to play games via email. It has enough to keep you busy for many, many months to come. So if you're a fan of strategy or a fan of simulation and World War II, or if you just fancy a real challenge, then I highly recommend that you pick up Combat Mission Red Thunder and see if you can make it as a 5-star general. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a subscribe, and don't forget to head over to our website www.entertainmentbuddha.com, where we make you a better geek one post at a time. I'll see you later.
entertainmentbuddha.com